Welcome everyone to our Be Emboldened live stream for February. It's been a minute. We took a break for the holidays, so we're glad to be back with some great content and great speakers this year in 2024. And kicking us off is Lindsey, who we're so glad to have you here, Lindsey, from Mama Bear Apologetics, writer, author, just incredible, smart, intelligent person and friend. So Lindsey, thanks for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and we've got Naomi on the beach, so it's a perfect time to get away to Cancun or Jamaica this time of year.
And my sweatshirt.
Somewhere warm.
I can't find my background, everyone, so I hope it's not too distracting. Otherwise, you're looking at a bright green screen, and that's going to hurt your eyes more than this will. So, yeah, we're just going with this today. So I can figure out the system. Apparently, in 2 months, everything. My brain stopped working on how to do this.
Yeah, we got all kinds of kicked out. He was like, "Oh, you haven't been here long in enough time, so I guess bye." And we're here, and we're going to talk about Twin Flames universe. So we're excited to have Lindsey on here today because she has recently done a deep dive of research into Twin Flames universe. Has written she's been on a podcast and she's written an article discussing this particular group called the Twin Flames universe. And so she is our resident expert on Twin Flames today. And we're excited to just have a conversation about what is Twin Flames? Why should we care? What should we know about Twin Flames? And of course, as usual, any questions in the comments or the chat are welcomed and encouraged. This is a live Q&A for you to get your questions answered. So we hope to see your questions in the chat anytime. Yeah. All right, well, let's dive in then. Naomi and Lindsey, we'll just have a conversation about what this is all about. But let's start us off with just a brief overview of what the Twin Flames universe is, in case anyone listening or watching hasn't seen the Netflix docuseries or heard of this group before. Give us the dirty details.
Well, that's actually really Lindsey's question. So we're going to need her to return.
Oh, boy.
I can give you some information on it, but I would definitely rather hear that from her. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, she did a real... Oh, there she's back.
I don't understand what happened. You asked the question and then I was gone.
You leave your girl hanging over here. I'm like, this was a you question, not a me question. Is this how we duck out?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I'll tell you before the internet decides to do its thing. The Twin Flames universe is, some people call it a love cult. I don't know sure, I'll go with that title based on my research. We'll kind of go with that. I think it's a lot more than that. I don't want to make it diminished or exceed what it actually is based on those terms. But essentially, it is a group that was put together by a couple named Jeff and Shalia. Their last name is Divine. So if I say Divine, that's who I'm talking about. They have officially changed their last name. It was Ayan, but it's not that anymore. So you might see some written materials with last name Ayan. It's the same couple that we're talking about. Jeff and Shalia are the couple. They believe in a thing called Twin Flames, which is not exclusive to the Twin Flame universe. So Twin Flames has its roots probably about 2,000 years ago with Plato. So this is not something that they invented. This is not something that they came up with magically. Twin flames is not a new concept. Essentially what a twin flame is, it's your perfect match. The person who was created for you. It's more than your soulmate. This is a person who was divinely created specifically for you. And your goal in life is to find this person and be with them. We can talk more about what that means later, but the group, it's hard to tell how many people are actually in the group, how many members are part of the organization. I joined the Facebook group while I was doing my research and sort of just lurked there. I'm no longer accepted in. That's not surprising. So I don't know what's happening today, but while I was in it a couple of weeks ago, there were about 52,000 people who were also part of the Facebook group. And some participated and some did not. I think most actually did not. But some of the things that you would find in that group would be promotional items about Jeff and Shalia's quotes, things that they've said or written about. So like there's a book. So things that they've written about, things that they've said in public videos or in classroom videos. But they also, in that group, offer tarot card readings. They offer, there's a lot of numerology happening. So if you see this, post 444 and all the things that you're hoping for will happen, that kind of thing. And then a lot of questions about how do I find my twin flame, or I found my twin flame, now what? My twin flame won't talk to me. How do I get back into a relationship with this person? My twin flame is married. What do I do? Lots of questions like that. And a lot of it is guiding them toward these classes that Jeff and Shalia offer through their website, Twin Flames Universe. So I guess that's the basic overview, right? Without getting into too many details, we'll hit a lot of highlights later, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So one group in many, there's a lot of different groups out there. We talk about a lot of groups, at Be Emboldened and on these live streams. So why are we focusing on this one today? And this could maybe be answered by Naomi or Lindsey, but in other words, why is this group important to know about right now?
Lindsey, go for it. Yeah, I'd love to hear your answer first.
Well, it's the cult of the moment. I hate to say that, but the Netflix docuseries Escaping Twin Flames came out in November. There was a similar docuseries that came out on Prime Video that was about the Twin Flames universe as well. Both are based on different articles that were written by different investigative journalists. Both of them had researched the Twin Flames universe for years. Like what I've done is a couple of months of research, and they've done like a really deep dive. One of them, she actually went and met Jeff and Shalia and spent some time with them. That's where we get sort of the Prime Video docuseries. So I would say it's important to talk about it because the world is talking about it. It's in the limelight. We don't often get to talk about cults real time. Unfortunately, when we're talking about cults, generally it has to do with some sort of tragedy that happened, or we're talking about what we've learned from it after a tragedy years later. And so to be able to talk about an organization like this one that is capturing people's hearts and capturing people's minds and holding them captive is a really unique spot for us to be able to be in. Even when we were dealing with NXIVM, right? Which is probably the closest group related to Twin Flames universe that's current. It's not current anymore. But when we were talking about NXIVM, it was kind of still in the past. They were in court by the time that we learned about all the things that were happening. This Twin Flames universe is still an active cult, or it's still an active organization. Naomi, I'm using the word cult so frequently, and my trepidation of using that term. I don't assign it to organizations freely, but this one, it hits. You can describe what a cult is later, but it hits all of those check marks that you're looking for in an organization that is controlling people and really holding them captive. And so I think the docuseries on Netflix is appropriately titled Escaping Twin Flames. It's not that people are running away from it or jumping over fences like we read about in groups like Scientology, for example. It's that they're trying to escape this stronghold that is put on them. And it's mental and emotional. It's not really as if Jeff and Shalia are holding people by the hands and saying, you may not leave. And so I think when we're talking about escaping, it really is a mental activity that's happening in the people that we're learning who have left the group. But I think that's why we're talking about it, right? Because it's out there. The Netflix series is extremely popular. People are talking about it on social media. People want to know more. Where are so-and-so today is a question that's frequently searched on the internet because people want to know more. And I think it's important to seize the moment and talk about it so that we can perhaps prevent people from falling prey to what's happening.
Yeah, and Lindsay, I want to add to that, piggybacking on what you said. There's a lot of connecting points with this group for people in the day to day, maybe in more of our like sort of even mainstream events where I have people come to be emboldened. There's connecting points that we don't necessarily have with other sorts of groups, like the form of escaping that you're talking about. Not that, yeah, it's a compound and I can't literally get out, but I, yes, the psychological hold, the emotional manipulation, we're talking about that deep love in your person. I mean, to play on that gives me a particular kind of anger because it's just a deep ache that we can have as humans, is just to really have that person and to be known and to be loved and to know and to love. And so to manipulate that in the way that they do, again, it's angering, and it is just, it's so ugly and it's so twisted. And I know I heard in your podcast episode with the Christian Research Journal that like you had to walk away a time or two. And I know the point you're talking about. But there's also this escaping in regards to, how would I put this? All of the time and energy and money and just resources that people have put in. And that's another kind of escape, because people are then like, well, if I walk away, one, this is my income, is doing this mentoring stuff, whatever word they used, with other coaching. Thank you. With other people. And so I haven't worked on my degree. I haven't built a career that can really go on a resume. I haven't. And so we can feel trapped in those more like kind of logistical, practical ways. And also feel like, I mean, and in reality, it's not just feeling like it. Truly, I've left everything else. I don't have any community outside of this. I don't have any friends. I've cut off my family because I've been encouraged to do so, because I've had these false memories implanted into my brain through MAP, which we'll get to. And so when I'm leaving, I'm going to nothing. And that showcased, I think, in Keely really well, where she's like, I'm now applying to law school, and so y'all, she's someone who's in the documentary, if you haven't seen it, the docuseries. And that's another kind of escape. It is a really, really big fall to have to take. And who's going to get it? Who can come alongside and get it? And that can also be really scary, because then it's like, well, can I call my family? Will they answer? And we heartbreakingly saw parents who would absolutely answer. And I'm so thankful. And I want to wrap all of them up and hugs and love and support, because what they are going through is absolutely tragic, and it should never happen to any parent. And we have people who are encouraging this behavior as if these other people are not real people and they're not devastating lives.
Yeah. I think we saw that right with Ella too. Ella is another person that was highlighted in Escaping Twin Flames. She's a scientist, right? And pretty well educated, but looking for love, looking for that person, and found Twin Flames Universe that way. And push came to shove, like she put all this money in, she put all of this investment in. They told her who her twin flame was, but then she was arrested for stalking him. Like she was arrested, she violated a restraining order and was in jail for 30 days, and nobody from Twin Flames Universe helped her. And she ultimately ended up calling her parents, and her parents bailed her out. And then she was living with her parents, and you see these videos of her back with the Twin Flames Universe afterward. And you watch the videos of Jeff just berating her and telling her this is her fault. And you can feel that pain of, she's torn a little bit, because she still wants to find her true love, and she's not quite sure what happened. And Jeff is treating her, he has a reputation for treating people pretty poorly anyway, but treating her so poorly in these videos. And finally there's a moment where she leaves, but that doesn't happen for everybody. And so I think that's another reason why it's so important, is you may have somebody who's watching may have this idea of a person who would fall for a cult, right? Like who would join a cult, like, oh, I would never do that. I could never, like, that would, who falls for these things? But the reality is, like, we're all able to fall for things like this every day. If we don't have our guard up, or if we're looking for something and somebody offers it to us, we become excited about the prospect of getting that. And like you said, Naomi, the whole idea of searching for your person and the people who will love you and accept you is such a strong draw, especially in the wake of COVID-19 and the devastating effects that we've experienced of isolation and loneliness. It makes sense that a group like this would thrive during a time like now.
Yeah, and to capitalize on that.
Right.
And there's a comment that Jeff made in that conversation you're talking about with, I don't know if it was Elle or Ella. So if someone's watching and we have it wrong, please forgive us. Yeah, I'm going back and forth between the two. I was listening to it again yesterday on like 1.5 speed, so I couldn't catch like everything.
Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, you go ahead, talk though.
So, but Jeff makes a comment after berating her where he then flips and says, "You now have my trust. You have my full trust, and you didn't have my trust before."
Yeah.
The psychological and emotional manipulation of that is one thing. It's awful. Also, why is the goal to have Jeff's trust? Like, who is this person? Basically, it's who's he's established himself to be. It shows the power and control that this man has.
Yeah. Her name's
that's
Elle.
the win.
Sorry, Elle.
Yeah.
It's Elle.
Wow. Yeah, I know that we're going to talk more about Jeff and who Jeff and Shalia are claiming to be. But I do want to back up a little bit, and we got a question in the chat that I think is great to start with, especially since it has to do with the name twin flame. And what does that mean? And so the question is, how or why is a twin flame different than a soulmate? Should Christians believe in soulmates? What is a soulmate? And it kind of speaks to what you guys are talking about, how this is a common desire for human beings to have this person in our life. And this is why this is so appealing and drawing people in. So,
yeah. Leave it to my husband, right?
I know. I was like, hey, Michael.
Baby, you're not my twin flame. I don't think it's a thing. But I'm committed and I love you and I'll take you.
Lindsey, that's really cute. I'm going to answer the question from Jeff and Shalia's own words in their book. I think it's important to kind of grasp what they think it means. And they have a whole chapter on it, so I can't read the whole thing. This would just be story time with Lindsey. But it's in a section about how it's not a soulmate. Romantic soulmate relationships are inevitably doomed because these souls are not perfectly designed to be with you. This is a good thing because it means someone is your twin flame who is your natural divine counterpart. So I think that's where we kind of get this idea of they're preying on people a little bit more here, because now they're including God in this. It's not just Jeff and Shalia, it's anybody who talks about twin flames, but we're talking about the divine playing with us and saying, okay, this person is going to go with this person, and this person is going to go with this person. And let's see if they ever find each other. And that is a terrible way to look at divineness and God's divineness. But it's not a soulmate, because soulmates, they don't really complete each other. They're more compatible. They build upon each other. They make each other better. But truly, a twin flame is united. You're not complete unless you found this person. And you're lacking in all the things from anything you could desire. They talk about sex a lot sorry, little ones.
You're okay.
They talk about sex a lot in the Twin Flames universe, and how with twin flame connections, sex allows you to raise your vibrations, which is very new agey. I can define that in a second, and ascend. So in new age world, we are all beings of energy. right? And our energy is really important to keep us going in life, but also to propel us into the future and into eternity. And the goal as our time on earth is to raise our vibrational energy. And we do this by doing good things. We do this by talking to God and getting closer to God, God being not necessarily the personal loving God of Christianity, but just God in the general sense. And once we raise our vibrations high enough, we reach this ascension event, which allows us to achieve, depending on which religion you believe, nirvana or perfection or whatever. And without your twin flame union, you're not able to do that completely because you are not complete. And so that's kind of what they're telling people is we'll help you find your twin flame union so that you can ascend completely into perfection, rather than just be this imperfect being for eternity. And should Christians believe in soulmates? That's a difficult one because I'm not sure that we've all got a good grasp of what a soulmate is. Soulmates, not as what they're called. I don't know that soulmates is a thing in real life. I think it's one of those things that little girls are taught, like, or that think about when we're growing up, like, oh, I hope one day I find my soulmate, right? I don't think men like regularly, maybe Michael is, but I don't think men are regularly thinking about soulmates. I think this is also another reason why most twin flame members seem to be female. Because we have this hopeful desire for someone to love us and we can like love them. And we imagine this union of perfection. I don't know that it's horrible to believe in soulmates, but I don't know that that matches with reality. I think it's more of this just rom-com dreamed up situation for people to think like, oh, one day I'll be in love and this person will make me a better person because they'll build me up. And that's, that's, I think, the basics of soulmates. But I do believe that in Christianity, we've got something better than that. And in marriage and union with our spouses, when two truly do become one in God's eyes. And that's not magic, it's reality. And it's described beautifully in scripture. It's never called soulmates or a twin flame union.
Right.
So I know marriage is an important thing in Christian worldview. It's not everything. You're not incomplete if you're not married. It's not something that you have to strive for in order to be closer to God. Singleness is celebrated as well. And so I think that we need to be careful as Christians to recognize that God's people are many and varied, and not everyone is going to get married, and not everybody is going to stay single, and that we need to be able to talk about these things openly.
It's so interesting. This group, like our secular culture would prefer Christianity on many of these issues over what Twin Flames is doing, which I find very interesting because oftentimes that would not be the case. And yet Twin Flames, like you said, Lindsey, is saying you're incomplete without this other person. And we're like, no, you're complete in Christ. Like, you're not incomplete. You can be married, not be married, like celebrate it either way. There's equality in being married or not being married. And so this message, the pressure on someone, and then to be told, yeah, that is your twin flame, like we see with Marley. I can't even, right? It's awful. It's horrific. It is heartbreaking what they did to this young woman. And I just wish people could be put in jail for it. I hope that you have your JD. Get working on it, Lindsey. We need precedents here. So it's like, how? And so to see something like that happen of this is your person. And even though they have diagnosed mental illness, that is going to be lifelong.
Yeah. We're not talking about just like a minor mental, like on a scale. We're talking
about a generalized anxiety disorder.
Schizoaffective disorder. Like the guy has some major issues.
Right. And can he live a full life? Yes, with proper support. It's
but not with
possible.
Marley.
No. And Marley did not even want to be with him. But there's this is your person, and you are not actually committed. You are failing. It's going to be your fault that you're going to live a life with this incompletion, and you're never going to reach ascension, and and this is going to be on you. This could be 100% your fault. So lots of blaming and shaming and guilting going on here. And like the questions you said you were seeing in the Facebook group, like, well, my twin flame is married. So we're going to be encouraging people to do things like break up marriages and go after people. There was another example, going after someone who's like, no, leave me alone. And so I know that Elle was not actually stalking. She just, awful coincidence that she ended up in the same place as the other person. Just total freak accident. I 100% believe her. And yet I could see like stalking being encouraged because this other woman was told like, well, no, like still reach out to him and still make an effort. And so there's so much personal responsibility and pressure put on someone that this has to be it. And otherwise your life is just, you have no shot.
Mm-hmm.
You have absolutely no shot. And when I think about this idea of soulmate, I agree with you, Lindsay. It's sort of like this kind of almost like Disney princess kind of rom-com sort of, thing that we can get wrapped up in. And I saw it when I came to Christ truly in my 20s and was baptized and was in a 20-something group. There was still this general kind of I don't know how much was verbal and how much was just like not directly being taught, but sort of this general culture of finding that person that God created for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of pressure for people. And I think some people coupled up that didn't actually truly want to couple up because they were of the impression this was who God was choosing for them. And recognizing that we choose, we have a choice there. And a part of that choice is going to be commitment in the union with one another, all of those things, the richer or poorer, the sickness, the health, all of that. And so, yes, there's love. You may not feel it every day, but there's also this commitment and this value of the covenant and the institution of marriage. Mm-hmm. And when we are trying to make it all this, I'm going to contradict myself here. When we're trying to make it all this big, beautiful thing, it's unrealistic. But here's the deal. The twin flame, they're not making it a big, beautiful thing. The way that Jeff speaks to Shalia.
You caught it too, right?
Oh, my word.
Okay. Yeah, it's bad. And I noticed in the progression of the videos, she starts getting like further and further back. Like she's not necessarily next to him in a lot of the videos. She's now like subservient to him. Mm-hmm. And she repeats him a lot. And I'm not going to divulge too much about a private conversation I had last week with someone closely related to the Twin Flames universe, but all is not well, right? When you're thinking about that relationship in particular, and who Shalia was prior to her relationship with Jeff, just in the explanation of how they met. So for those of you who didn't see it, Jeff and Shalia met online, which is not a bad thing. Okay, like you find if you want to do that, go for it. That's like the new way, and I'm so grateful that I didn't have to do that because it seems like a lot of pressure to find somebody online. But the online world is so big. But they found each other online, and then they met in person, and then she flew to Hawaii to be with him, and they've been together ever since. They got married a couple of years later. This is like in the early 20 teens. I don't even know how to say that anymore. Side note, I saw a video the other day of a teacher talking to their kids, students about some of the music in the 1990s. And they said, well, that was the 1000s. And I was like, is that what we're doing now? We were in the 1000s, Naomi. So in the 20 teens, they got married, they got together. They very quickly wrote their book. They started offering courses about finding your twin flame. And then they bonded over tarot cards and new agey kind of spirituality things. They're both they were both Roman Catholic. They were raised Roman Catholic, and then they both kind of diverged from that and became New Agey, and then found each other. So that's kind of the basis of their relationship has been. I think for Jeff, he thought he was too good for Shalia initially, and his response to her, and this is in chapter 1 of their book, which is really kind of disturbing to me. But he says, I thought she was weirdly sexy, but really that's all that came of it. I have so many other women interested in me, and she doesn't look like America's Next Top Model. Like, this is in their book about true love. And I'm thinking to myself, like, when she's explaining how she met Jeff, like, it's like the gushing, like, I knew immediately, and I needed to be with this man. And he's like, she's convenient and she likes me, and I think I'll be with her. And she does these things that and they didn't really mention this on I'm reading between the lines at this point, but he really seemed to see an advantage of having her in his life, and having her particular giftings of she believes she's a divine channel and can speak directly to God. And that was a really important part for him, I think, that drew him to her. But when you watch the videos of those two together, it does seem like it has gotten progressively worse for Shalia. But I don't know that she's innocent. I'm not claiming that she is. I think she has an awareness of what's happening, and she's not dumb, right? But I do think that maybe things are not well, and all that they seem to be. And I think we saw that, Naomi, in the trending of the different relationships that were created by Jeff and Shalia, right? Like these relationships that they were calling harmonious twin flame unions, in the real world, we would be like, really? Those two people? They're going to go together?
Well, there's no harmony.
Nothing in common, right? They don't even live in the same, continent, in some cases. And you're encouraging them to move, to live with one another, without knowing each other. And it's really just sad and kind of bizarre when you watch the videos and you get this feeling of like, who are these people, Jeff and Shalia? Who are these people, and what is really driving them to? I have a perspective on that. Like what is really driving them to operate this group? What are their motivations? I don't think it's true love.
Oh goodness, no. And I think that they showcase that very well for themselves.
Yeah,
that it's not about true love. They're very showy with their wealth. And so there's definitely a financial motivator. They have big financial goals. Again, nothing wrong in that. Just depends on how we're going to reach them. We don't reach it on the exploitation of other people. And there's a lot of pride, a lot of power. I see that for sure. Like the desire for power. I mean, the very opening of the Netflix docuseries, where he's like, he gives a little information, then Ashley, like, was that a good foundation? So you're like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, that is a good foundation. Right there, you can see, like, it's just dripping with that arrogance of, yeah, I am awesome. Of course, what I said was said perfectly. How else could it be? And then throughout this, he's so verbally abusive. He's calling people liars. He's calling them insane. He's calling them morons. He says that they're being whiny little bees. He says that. He says to his wife, he's saying to everyone about his wife after he like berates her in front of everyone in a meeting, this is what discipline looks like.
Yes.
Like, I'm disciplining my wife publicly, my twin flame. Like, this is what that's supposed to look like. I'm like, did we just enter the patriarchy? Like, I thought where are we right now?
Especially based on their new age beliefs. It's really bizarre to see because in reality, she would be the leader. I don't know why he's getting so much credit in this relationship, because New Age really, really talks about femininity and being your own person as a woman. And we see the rise of feminism associated a lot of times with the rise of the New Age movement. And it's bizarre to see Shalia just sort of handing that over to Jeff, like, oh, yep, you're right. You're right. No, you're not right.
Right.
Well, that's what makes this question so interesting. I think we've talked a lot about it,
Michael.
but Michael has another question about, why is this so attractive to people when there's so many confusing and conflicting messages that would go against what you would think people would be into or want? I mean, we have on one hand the soulmate or twin flame, the true love aspect that's probably attractive to people, but then you get behind the veil and there's these other dynamics going on. And then of course, Michael has another part of his question too, is does Christianity offer a better alternative to what people are finding attractive? And I think you kind of talked about that with like what marriage is, but would love to hear what other thoughts both of you have to answer this question.
You want to go, Naomi? Or you want me to go?
Go ahead. You're a special guest.
I am special. So the idea of the twin flames being attractive, I don't think it only has to do with finding your true love. We do see friendships start to develop between some of the members as they're in the same classes together. And they're participating in the same things. And then actually we see a couple of them join forces against Jeff and Shalia toward the end of the docuseries. And so I think it really is a community. It's not a great community. It's not a healthy community. But cults are in and of themselves communities. And they offer this, they purport to offer this acceptance of you, and you're part of this group and you're in this in-group, and we are achieving something that nobody else on planet Earth is achieving, and we've got this secret sauce that you can't get anywhere else, so pay us your money and we'll help you find your community and your friendship and your love. So I think that's why it's attractive. Christianity at its best should offer those things freely to people. As Christians, we should be setting the standard of how this is done in the real world. And I don't know that we are necessarily. I think there's a lot of room for growth in the way that we offer community for other Christians, the way that we show hospitality to others. There's a line in scripture about, you could be entertaining angels. And I think about that a lot. Like, I think we've diminished the role of hospitality and welcoming people into our homes and sharing life together and doing life together. I think that's what was so wonderful about being in seminary with people like Michael and Naomi, is that we were sort of in our bubble. And, some of us, had dinner like every week together, or we would have community Thanksgiving meals together, or we would get together once a month for name it, root beer floats or a game night or whatever. There was this community that was built in to living on campus at seminary. And then you go out into the real world, and now you're responsible for finding this community. And so many people don't even know the names of their neighbors. So you're expected to have this community and welcoming environment, and we're not known by even the people who are living the closest to us, which again, I think makes groups like the Twin Flames universe that much more attractive to people who are looking for this resolution to loneliness that they feel, that they're not finding a solution for in going to church on Sunday mornings or in their own neighborhoods. So I think it's filling a gap that unfortunately some areas of Christianity have left open to be filled by false ideologists and leaders. And Christians need to really be thinking about our responsibility in helping others know that they're known and that they're loved, and even more deeply loved by our Creator, but loved by us as well. And we need to do better. I think that's my answer anyway.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear what Naomi has to say though.
Yeah, I think it was beautifully said. It's essentially like marketing 101. Like, here's the need, here's the problem, and here's an answer, a solution that's available for it. And you going to market it well or not? And unfortunately, a lot of the marketing that we get for Christianity doesn't look so great these days. And so, okay, here's some other solutions that people can consider. And may people be more open to something like twin flames over Christianity? Absolutely. Will they have reasons for that? Some of them very valid. Absolutely. And so I would understand. And yet this isn't necessarily, obviously this isn't the solution, joining a group like this that's going to exploit somebody, that is going to just cause so much deeper damage. And I think, again, what really got me with this, when we're thinking about like, what is true love? And I had made this note. True love is the families who are fighting for their loved ones, who are either silencing themselves while they're breaking inside in hopes of some contact, or the loved ones who are speaking out in hopes of being heard so that the person they've lost will reconnect. I mean, this is what true love really looks like. And I think the docuseries captured that love so well. And I was so thankful that they, the family members, those who felt like they could, put their faces out there. Super personal decision. I respect everyone who also decided not to go about it in that way. So everyone's trying to navigate what is the best chance that I have. And we come alongside families who have loved ones in situations like this. And they're like, how do I respond to this text? How do I navigate this phone call? Do I send a gift for the birthday or not? And we do our best to think about how things could be received. And then at the end of the day, people have to do what they believe in their heart they have to do, because ultimately that's what they can do. Because we can't fully read what's going to happen on the other side. Like, people have their own sense of agency to make a decision. And so we do the best that we can. And it doesn't always work out like we're hoping it's going to work out, at least in the time frame that we're hoping for. Now, I just read an article yesterday in Psychology Today that I was very happy to see. They gave a statistic that while young adult estrangement is actually really high right now, a lot of young adults are becoming estranged from their families. Like, they are cutting off ties. And it's saying that the reason they're doing it is because they're not sure. The young adults are unsure how to re-navigate the relationship as they're stepping out on their own. Like, there's this struggle of, how do I now be an independent adult, interdependent adult? How do I do this and change the dynamic that I've had and still maintain the relationship? So there's a struggle in the transition. Now, that can be on both sides, both parties, of course, involved, maybe in some tension there. And so what young adults are doing is, instead, they're just cutting relationship. It showed that with mothers, at least, like, it was like 81.3% actually do reconnect. So there's a lot of hope that will happen. I think it also speaks to a conversation that we need to be having as our kiddos get older, is how do we navigate this transition in relationship? Because we certainly don't have to cut people off to do it. There doesn't have to be this estrangement. So I know I kind of rabbit trailed a little bit there, but there's a couple other points I want to make sure that we hit on. And so I'm going to jump to, which one do I want to pull up first? There's a couple. Lindsey, if you don't mind, I want to talk about some of the mental health related stuff, because I think it would be remiss of me anyway if I didn't bring that up. So I want to touch on the mirror exercise and the mind alignment process and divine dish. And we can kind of go through those kind of, on the quicker side. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. The mirror exercise basically was, switching nouns to yourself. You're welcome to get more into it if you want. But if it was like, I'm going to give a pretty overt example, but like, John is abusing me, instead I would switch it to, I am abusing myself. Like, that's essentially what it's saying to do.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. That, you nailed it. That's exactly what it's saying to do. And then you are healing yourself then. It's a four-step process. And in the third step, you're asking yourself if that statement is true. So if you've changed the pronouns to personal pronouns, you're abusing yourself. You ask yourself, is that true? Jeff and Shalia say it's always true. So there's really no. And then if that's true, then in number 4, you're responsible for loving yourself. So, I saw a video of this play out on the group, on the closed group on Facebook. There was a video of a couple illustrating this this process. And one of the people who is in this couple, they said, I'm careful with my pronouns because there's a lot of gender weirdness in this. I say weirdness because I think everybody agrees that things are a little messed up gender-wise in this group. But
transgender community agrees with you.
Yes. It's not right. But one of the members of this couple says, when I love myself, I just give myself a hug inside and hold it for as long as I can. And I'm like, and that's how we're healing trauma. But trauma that's not even like yours. Because if you watch, this is where Marley comes in. The Marley section hit me really hard. That one's a hard one because she was the youngest member of their community. She was brought in by her sister, Keely, who has since apologized for her role, and she, Keely is not to blame in this situation. But Marley comes in and she's quiet and reserved, and you just want to like hold her. You just want to protect her, right? Immediately when she comes on the screen, you're like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do to this poor girl? Basically, Jeff tells her when she's saying, he had a psychotic, her twin flame had a psychotic break. She was hit in the process. There was abuse happening. Basically, he said, I should probably quote, he's not hurting you unless you want him to.
I wrote that one down too.
Okay, but he is. But
Right.
that's what the mirror exercise does, is it puts the responsibility of the abuse on the person who is being abused, on the victim, rather than placing the responsibility of the abuse where it belongs.
Right.
And Jeff is supporting that. And Shalia is, they are both supporting that. And that's wrong. There was also an incident described where, and I couldn't find this in the group. I think they've since deleted the post, but where a young woman was seeking help and they recommended the mirror exercise, and then she ended up unaliving herself. And they had a conversation about this, and it was basically her fault because she didn't do enough to recover from her trauma. And that is, friends, that's wrong. And I know who Be Emboldened is reaching, and I need you to know that this is not your fault. And despite, the material success of Jeff and Shalia in this program, people are being truly damaged and harmed by what is being taught and how they are being handled. And that's perhaps some of the hardest stuff covered in Escaping Twin Flames. It led into, so the mirror exercise, you're healing yourself, you're blaming yourself. That led into the mind alignment process, MAP. This is another one that I was like, and I'm done for today. Like I can't with this today. MAP is it's a 12-week program that you can buy for about $1,500. And they claim to be able to heal your trauma. Now, this is interesting because in the world of trauma and the world of healing trauma and trauma therapy, you need people who are actually trained to help people. It's one of the beautiful things about Be Emboldened is that there are people who are actually trained in trauma that are helping people with their trauma and finding them people who can help them, right? In the mind alignment process, it is people who are not trained in trauma who are walking you through this program that Jeff created, who is not trained in trauma. Trauma therapy. He does not know anything about trauma therapy. He just developed this program willy-nilly. He has a degree in business, okay? Not a degree in therapy and clinical psychology. He has trained the other people who are leading this program. And so they call themselves certified. They're not. if you click on their what's it called?
So like their disclaimer or their
disclaimer. Yep,
okay.
their disclaimer. You have to click the button though.
Okay.
Right? Like if you're not going to the bottom of the website and clicking the button, you won't see the disclaimer. So you have to click the button to see the disclaimer. And in the disclaimer, it says, none of us are trained to do this. Like you're taking $1,500 from people and you're telling them that you're going to be able to heal their trauma. And Chrissy Emmerich, who is the leader of this particular group, MAP, she is, former military and talked about infiltrating the military and like helping them sell MAP to military members for their PTSD. And I posted this on my Facebook page, my private one with my private friends. I don't have many friends. I don't do the thousands of friends. I keep it pretty tight. And immediately people jumped on it. I had clinical psychologists from everywhere, former military members from everywhere. Like, what? Like, that's a big deal that they're doing this. And they'll jump back to their disclaimer that says, well, we say we're not trained in this and we're not qualified. And we say that it shouldn't replace actual psychotherapy. And I'm like, but you're telling people you'll cure them of their trauma. And you're flat out lying to them because it doesn't work. And they point to studies, but as one of my clinical friends, she was like, those studies don't support what they say it supports. And I was like, I know, like but if they're just linking to a study, people will be like, oh, there's a study. And most people aren't going to read the studies, right? They might browse the abstract, but most people, unless you're my husband, you're not going to read the study all the way through. His coworker, who is the one who was like, that's not what that says. She read the study and she's like, yeah, that's wrong. And so I think we need to recognize MAP for what it is. It's a fraud. And it's just another way of preying on people who need something and offering them this solution, but it's not real. And they're preying on their own members, right? So one thing we haven't talked about, Naomi, is the cost of all of this. This isn't a free program. None of this is free except for the Facebook group. You can get access to a couple of the classes for free, but those are just PDFs and they're not very good. You don't get much. To really get your money's worth, which is not really your money's worth, you have to invest a lot of money into the program. And people are investing thousands and thousands of dollars. And this is where it comes down to, Naomi, with you saying, like, you're leaving that, like, you're going to admit you were taken, right? Like they took my money and I believed them. And now I'm just going to leave it. And that's a hard sell for a lot of people because they have invested so much money,
right?
So much time. Initially, Ascension Twin Flame coaches, they were paid completely. They got all of their money for coaching sessions. But now Jeff and Shalia get 50%. So the coaches are only getting 50% of the money that they're bringing in for their coaching. It's part of the program. You buy the classes, then you get the coaching, which also costs money. Then you buy the MAP because they will inevitably tell you have a trauma, even if you don't. They'll find a trauma that needs to be healed.
Well, they'll create one.
And so you then have to buy into MAP. So now that's another purchase. Then they'll tell you you're not eating right. So you need to buy Divine Dish, which is a program that Jeff and Shalia created. It's just menu. It's a menu. It's menus. That's all it is. They don't send you the meals. Like we get a box with food in it every week, and it's wonderful. And I love it. But all they get is a menu, and they still have to go out and buy the food that goes along with that menu, right? And so, and the food is not healthy. It's actually not good food for your body. If you were looking at it as a dietitian, this is not the food that you would want to be feeding your body every day. And it's just controlling them in one more way, right? Like now we're going to control what you eat. So you're in these classes pretty much every day, and you're paying for your coaching, and you're paying for your meals. The the menus, and you're paying for MAP, and then you're paying to go on other retreats that they offer. They're offering a retreat, and it might be this month now. And so you're paying for that. Everything costs money for them, and you have to pay in. And if you're not paying in, then you are excommunicated and shunned. And so the result of that is you want to keep paying in, and they're encouraging people to, take on debt for their credit cards, which is another signal of, we're controlling everything. Max out your credit cards, mortgage your home, that all the other things that you would do to get extra cash, and also work for free for me. And volunteer. Did that scene bother you at all when they were talking about creating Church of Union, where Jeff is having a conversation? I forget who was on the call for this one. I know I think Chrissy was on it. How can I avoid taxes and paying people? Make it a religion. And so he created Church of Union. And I have since found out, even since I wrote the article and was on the previous podcast in a conversation I had with somebody close, they have a lot of businesses, including gaming. They have something called Divine Gaming, where they have created a video game where Jeff is this center controlling figure, and everybody else is a zombie. And it's based sort of on Minecraft, and it's very dark and gross. And I'm not going to name it what it is, but it's very dark and gross. I do not recommend. They've got a lot of businesses, and they're making a lot of money. And members are required to buy into everything they create. So it's not a choice, really. I mean, it is a choice. You could say, well, everybody, and this is where Jeff and Shalia would say, well, they're making the choice to be part of our group. We're not forcing anyone, but they are when we're talking about coercion, right? These people are desperate for love or whatever Twin Flames universe is offering to them, connection. And in order to continue to get that, they have to buy into it. And we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Jeff and Shalia are worth $5 million. They brag about their money. Shalia has talked about how when she met Jeff, she was living in a garage, and now she's wearing all Chanel. There's just, it's prosperity gospel would be I think the closest way for people to think about it, in terms of if you're a Christian, that would ring true, because they're talking about manifesting wealth. And if you believe you're going to get the money and you sow into us, you will get the money. And they're promising wealth to their members, and all their members have to do is pay into this program forever and manifest their own wealth. And if they don't, it's their problem, and they need to mirror it.
Right. And so now he started the church in order to save money on taxes and be able to have a lot of people volunteer. And then all of a sudden he's Jesus. And so it continues to escalate. But I want to go back before we wrap up on that note. I want to go back to the map, the mind alignment thing, the mirroring thing, the divine dish thing. So basically what's happening here is someone is being abused, at minimum being mistreated. Definitely abuse. We've definitely seen examples of abuse, clear cut, no questions about that. And they're basically being told, like, you somehow need to stay in the abuse and love yourself and make it work. And then you'll be able to provide the right environment for that person to stop abusing you. So now you're responsible for the abuse that's happening to you. And so now most likely what is happening is we're encouraging people to dissociate, to completely like wall off and disconnect. We're absolutely damaging the inherent value that they are going to believe that they have, which we as Christians know we have in our Lord. This is so damaging. I also want to mention in regards to divine dish, what's happening there, because it was like, oh, people are dissociating. Let's make them feel heavier to help them stay in their bodies. That is one of the most idiotic things I have ever heard as an actual professional. So now we're going to create a disordered eating concern in someone. So now we've caused another struggle that they're going to have to come through. This is absurd. And then I'm going to take it just really quickly from a more like scientific aspect. So we have this mix going on, right? We're feeding people awful diets. They're not getting high fiber. They're getting high sugar. They're getting high carbs. So we know that this causes inflammation in the hippocampus. So this causes inflammation in this part of the brain back here. Now, this part of the brain has a lot to do with the trauma response. So it matters what we're eating and what we're doing with ourselves when we are someone who has experienced real trauma and is trying to heal from it. So if someone has experienced trauma and they're eating that kind of diet and then they're having memories implanted,
Right.
because the hippocampus is our memory center. It's primary for our memories. And so now we've caused inflammation there. And now we've got someone who's untrained through the MAP process, planting memory, not implanting, they're not literally, but like planting memories. That's something that as a trained professional, we have to be really cautious that we never do that with someone who has experienced trauma, someone who has dissociated, et cetera. We have to be really cautious that we're not accidentally giving someone a false memory that's going to then change their narrative and change their healing process and potentially put a much more burden on them when it may not even be true. There's no caution. They're literally doing it on purpose.
And it's why like 12 weeks, like a 12-week program to heal your trauma doesn't make any sense because true trauma therapy could take years.
Yes.
Like you go so slow. It's not like a rushed process where a therapist is like, okay, let's get your trauma ready. Let's get it healed. It's a let's gently wade you into the waters and begin to heal slowly. We're not going to hit you all at one time,
right?
Because that's not healthy either, right?
Right.
So 12 weeks is ridiculous.
Yeah. And then it's going to make someone feel like they failed when it doesn't work. So they're either going to fake it till they make it and they're not going to make it. They're going to fall to pieces and people are going to need really excellent supportive care on the other side of this, from like fixing diet because of the impact it's having on their brain to all of the other stuff. I mean, they are creating, I just have never seen a situation where they're creating such a perfect storm to actually cause a trauma response in someone. It blows my mind. It is the most neglectful. And it makes me angry. This docuseries made me angry in a different way because it just looks so intentional. And there's stuff in groups where there's intentional stuff. And then there's like, people don't know things. And I'm like, you guys need to stop. Like, I mean, we should have every licensing board trying to come down on these people. I'm like, is there any leverage that we have? So JD, we'll talk about that separately. But I want to land this, Natasha. I know that we have to wrap up. I know we're over. Lindsey, thank you for staying on a bit longer. I
love it. I could be here all day. We want to just
I know. I feel like we could be too. I want to land us on basically this escalation that we see because we see this a lot. This is common. And I'm watching it with groups that are not getting the notoriety right now. I'm watching the escalation. And this is a theme. We've seen this, of course, in our big examples of Jonestown and of Waco with the Branch Davidians. We've seen this in different ways. Again, I'm seeing it all over the country right now with smaller clustered groups. We're getting to see it, like you said, in more real time with twin flames. And so we're seeing this escalation of what's going on with creating same-sex couples with people who are not actually same-sex attracted, pushing transgenderism, which is mocking to individuals who are a part of that community. They're trying to dissolve the illusion, quote unquote, of the biological body, which is this whole other thing, this Jesus nonsense, the purchasing of the property, which looks like it's moving towards being a commune, maybe a compound. If they decide to put up a fence, their baby, I'll hand it to you. But it's getting worse.
It is. Yeah. No, the compound's a real thing. Insiders will say. No, the compound's a real thing. People are buying property next to the compound property. It's so for anybody who's not familiar, it's in Michigan, and they have purchased there's land, and their goal is to have members join them in this compound, and they all live together, and they raise what they call golden children. And the golden children, there's too much there. It's a new agey concept, shocker. But essentially, Jeff and Shalia just had the perfect child last year. We all think our children, we all think our children are perfect. Okay. But this is a child who literally in their brains chose to be their child. And because she is the child of a couple in harmonious twin flame union, she is their third twin flame. Okay, so she's their third twin flame. The idea is that she will never have sex with a human. That's very important to clarification. She is too good to have sex with humans. And so God is her mate. Their goal is to fill their compound with golden children, and they are going to raise the vibrations of the earth quickly through their own work, and they will cause the ascension to happen, the collective ascension event. Now we're talking like the big collective ascension event, just not your individual, but like New Agers believe that there will be an event that happens that we're building toward. And once we hit the right vibration as a collective, we will all ascend. Anyways, they are building a compound. People are moving to the compound. Houses are being built, and things are moving along to do this. And it's frightening, but law enforcement knows about them. So it's not like they're doing this without anybody knowing. The work has been done, right? So the people who have been helping move along the process, we see this in Escaping Twin Flames. There are family members who have been working to get information into the hands of law enforcement so that law enforcement has what they need. But law enforcement isn't going to act without all of the things in place.
They can't.
Right. They
their
can't.
hands are tied.
So what we can do right now is to have these kinds of conversations more regularly in the public space, so that when people are online searching for twin flames, they discover podcasts or live streams like this one, and it counteracts the information that they're receiving also online from the Twin Flames universe, so that they can see truth through the mud and the muck of what's being created by Jeff and Shalia, because they do believe that Jeff believes he's Christ. Okay, so he believes he's Jesus Christ, the second coming of Christ. And Shalia is the mother Christ, right? And this is what they believe, and this is what they're telling their people. And so they believe they teach that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were twin flames. And so they're taking scripture, and James Sire, they're twisting it, right? They're twisting scripture. And it's another sign of a cult, where they're taking this, the word of God, and they're manipulating it for their own means. And how does it end? I asked my person, my lovely, lovely human, I asked, how does this end? And then she said, my family member gets out. That's how it ends. She has to get out, right? This person has to get out. I said, okay, but what happens? How does the group end? And we don't know. Like, we can't assume how it will end. We've seen how groups like this end. And it could end perhaps the lawsuits. Maybe Jeff ends up in jail, and a lot of people leave because they realize, oh, he was wrong. But we've seen where, that doesn't always work. Cult leaders go into jail, and there are still members who follow them. We saw this with FLDS. We see this with Nexium, right? There are still people who adhere to the teachings of Nexium. And so it's not a guarantee that it ends if Jeff and Shalia get put in jail. It could end in worse circumstances. I hope to God that doesn't happen. But it could. And so as Christians, we need to fervently pray for the members, for unsuspecting people who might join, who don't know what they're joining, and for Jeff and Shalia's delivery. Like, so many of us forget to pray for cult leaders or for leaders who are taking people down false paths, when the solution really would be that Jeff and Shalia become Christians and recognize the fault in their ways and repent of it, and it dissolves that way. That would be the best case scenario.
Yeah. And Lindsey, we have multiple ex-cult leaders as clients. It's amazing. That really creates change at a different level. It's absolutely incredible. And them helping others who are now leaving to also get support and to get on their feet. So it can happen, you guys. We are seeing it happen, and it is genuine. It's really happening. And so, yes, please do. Please hear what Lindsey's saying. And Lindsey, I want to bring us full circle too with what Natasha, you asked at the beginning. Why are we talking about this? We're talking about this for all of these reasons that you're sharing. And we're talking about it not only for the current generation, but for these poor children who are now going to be born into this and raised in this, because they are also going to need help someday. And so that's why we do this.
And this is where we as Christians can really, help people and walk alongside them and not just abandon them and not just say, oh, that's great entertainment. I'm so glad I watched that. It cannot be entertainment.
If it entertains you, please take a step back and take a look at your heart in that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to cast a stone. I'm saying that please really genuinely step back and be like, why would I find this entertaining? Like, am I becoming desensitized? Do I need to reconnect with the reality of this?
Yeah. I think docuseries like Escaping Twin Flames can be so important because we really need to be able to shine a light on it. And I really think organizations like Netflix have the money, right? They have the resources to be able to shine a light on this kind of thing. And they're not doing it to promote Christianity. But as Christians, we should be able to also shine a light on organizations like this. But we should be the group that people want to fall back on. Too often we see people who have been delivered from groups like this who then believe in nothing. They become a nun. N-O-N-E, not none as in the Catholic Church. But they don't trust anything because they've been violated so deeply. And so as Christians, we need to be willing to walk that really long and difficult path of recovery and check in on one another, right? And recognize that even 10 years out, cult survivors need support and love and people who they can trust to say, I'm just not having a great day. And we can be those people, not because we want to force Christianity on them, but because as Christ followers, this should be an outpouring of our faith, a natural outpouring of our faith to love people wholly the way that God sees them, as image bearers of himself, and recognizing that they have value and inherent worth, like you said, Naomi, in who they are in Christ. And I think it's really important for us to stop being entertained by these things and recognizing that there's a much bigger thing we could be doing once we've equipped ourselves with knowledge. And I'm not saying we should go infiltrate organizations or cults or anything like that. Like there are people who are willing to do that. We see this in particular Scientology right now. There's a really big influx of people who are just like knocking on Scientology's door, literally, and trying to physically pull members out. I am not advising people to do that. But I am advising people to speak more freely on these topics, and not just say, I saw this docuseries and it was so good. Well, right. Okay. But why? What did you learn from it? What can we do to help people? Are there organizations like Be Emboldened that I can put my money where my mouth is and say, you're doing the work that needs to be done? Let me support that, because I'm not equipped. I'm not giving therapy, right? Like I'm not equipped to do that, right? Like I can learn, I can do things. I'm talented in other ways, but I'm not the one who will help somebody heal their trauma. But there are great organizations like Be Emboldened who are doing that. And if we can't help be boots on the ground, we can at least give money to help the people who are trying to overcome the pain and the heartache that they've experienced. And it does, it takes time and it takes money to do those things. And it's not, you have to live. You have and so I think that's what the takeaway should be when we see groups like this, and this is active. We need to recognize like this is an active thing instead of mocking the members or saying, I can't believe they fell for that. How can we see them as fellow humans that need love and care and this desire of overcoming their loneliness and isolation?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lindsey. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the time and energy that you put into investigating and researching, because it brings us good, solid information that we can be confident in as we're making these decisions about how do we get involved and how do we help be that change that we keep saying we need to see. And so thank you. I know what it's like to live in these kinds of contexts. It's a lot mentally, emotionally, psychologically, it just spiritually, it is wearing. So thank you for being in it with us.
I mean, there was a time where you couldn't even talk about it, Naomi.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was a time where you were just like, that's not me. I'm not talking about it. And it was, I think it was even after seminary where it was more like more came out about your experiences to me. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So it can be years before we ever find out. And look at the difference that just walking with somebody, I'm not saying I made a difference in your life. I'm saying walking with somebody without any expectations of knowing all the things, and then they feel like they can trust you or that you can help them in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Natasha, I'll let you wrap us up. I know we're so far over, but thank
Sorry.
you.
Thank you.
Don't apologize.
Yes, this was an engaging conversation that really makes a difference for what's happening now in people's lives, and that this is important to talk about. So I do pray, and I hope that people who saw this are impacted by it, that people searching for twin flames do come across this, and that they take the time to listen. Really appreciate both having you on this call today to dive into this really important topic. And for anyone who might have questions or follow-up concerns, please leave a message in the comments, email us at hello@beembolden.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for supporting this work and being with us today.
Bye.